Hello, ladies. You know something, ladies? The big fake monkey is a lot like nanotechnology. So small, won't even know it's inside. And now, making his way to the stream, hailing from Las Vegas, Nevada, weighing in at 255 pounds, two-time Intercontinental Champion, Venis!
Hello, ladies.
We're here with Sean Morley, aka Val Venis, WWE superstar, two-time Continental Champion. And I'm going to fanboy for a sec here, guys. I thought it was 98, maybe 99. I remember going down to the Provic Civic Center. And one thing is I had the Rock's people eyebrow drawn over my nipple, but I also had my shirt ready to take off because I had the towel. Me and my brothers bought two towels.
Yes.
We were trying our hardest to get on TV. We did not get on TV, but we look damn good in the as good as Sean. But Sean, thank you so much for joining us today and for everything that you do. Welcome to the stream, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I want to thank you for having me on your stream here. I've been a big fan of your work for a long time, bro. You're doing some phenomenal work out there. Really good stuff.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And honestly, I'm going to probably fanboy a little harder later on after this stream. And after I'm done with smoking a big fat J as well, too. So
there you go.
Let's start at the very beginning. You know, what and who inspired you to go down this path and become a professional wrestler?
You know, it was something I always loved wrestling my whole life. Since I was a little kid, my brother and I, we watched wrestling regularly. It was a regular thing for us. Never really thought about becoming a professional wrestler. Wanted to originally become a helicopter pilot and fly air ambulance. But my second last year of high school, I kind of fell into, through some, acquaintances, fell into a school in Hamilton that was run by Dewey Robertson and his son, Jason Robertson. Dewey Robertson used to do the missing link gimmick out of Texas. He was huge in Texas back in the day. And so I started training at their school. And it wasn't long before I realized, hey, man, I could make a good career out of this. And so got my first full-time wrestling job after high school over in England. And I figured I'd go over there for the summer and start university in the fall. But I never came back to university. I actually ended up staying in England for an entire year. And that was the beginning of my career. It didn't stop. 24 years later, I finally got out of it. Well, semi.
Well, and yeah, you're still very well sought after, and you've had a long and illustrious career. I mean, people. When I was telling people, yeah, you guys watch wrestling back in the day, I was like, we're gonna be interviewing Val Venis today. Like, what the heck? And so it was really dope. So let's maybe go through a couple of your favorite moments in your career and what it's been like working with some of these personalities and Vince McMahon, and not only just the WWE, but TNA, and you've traveled the entire world performing for people. And that's one of the things that I love about Val. Val is somebody that has brought Sean has brought countless hours of laughter and joy to people, and you can't put a price on that. And he's also been doing a lot of other things and been embroiled in some controversy as well too, which is cool. But take us through some of your so he's not one-dimensional. Take us through some of your favorite moments in your world of wrestling.
Well, I had a lot of favorite moments. Maybe we could talk about some other time prior to WWE, over in Japan and Mexico and Puerto Rico. But we could do a whole nother stream on that some other time. But in WWE, I would have to say some of my favorite moments were obviously the entire storyline with Kai and Tai, where they strapped me up and they were going to chop my junk off. And then John Wayne Bobbitt so happened to show up out of nowhere and flip the lights out just in the nick of time and save the Big Valboski some serious, you know what I mean? So that was definitely one of my favorite moments. I think that was one of the more popular storylines. I think it was one of the more shocking ones that kind of resonated and stuck with people for a lot of years. I still get asked mostly about that storyline today. On top of that, I mean, you could say that my whole run with Goldust was a really good, memorable run. Thoroughly enjoyed that run. Of course, my run with Ken Shamrock as well was quite memorable. Me stealing his sister Ryan Shamrock and Ken Shamrock snapping and going after me, and it made for really good TV at that time during the Attitude Era. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's never quite been the same since the Attitude Era, and that was really, in my opinion, the prime, the heyday. I mean, I grew up in the '80s watching Million Dollar Man and Hulk Hogan
Yeah.
down in DC, and I still will find myself. I'm somebody that likes to do a lot of research, likes to keep my nose to the grind and learn as much as possible. But I will still go through clips of the Attitude Era and enjoy it because it's just so funny. It's amazing. So
Yeah, one of the greatest eras ever in wrestling, I think. Anyways, that's my humble opinion, for sure.
yeah, and it's also funny too because I know in one of your interviews you said your least favorite character was when you were with the Right to Censor, and
Yeah.
Richards. I think Steve Richards is hilarious. He's able to play so many different gimmicks. He's a funny dude, but it's also interesting to see the Right to Censor. He kind of did that as a parody, but now that's kind of the world we're living in right now. It's actually gone almost as far, arguably farther than what you guys were jokingly doing,
Oh, you
20
ain't
years ago.
kidding, man. Has it ever? That's crazy, right? Like, we actually portrayed that back in the day. And look where we are today. I mean, just society itself has far surpassed anything that the right could censor could ever dream up before. It's pretty wild to see what's happened.
It really is, honestly. I mean, even the events of the last couple of years with the cooties pox going out everywhere, I just seen things that I would have never imagined happen, and now are kind of commonplace things that we deal with. But before we shift gears into the stuff that I really want to talk about, Sean Morley, Val Venis, who are your top three favorite wrestlers of all time?
My top three favorite wrestlers of all time would have to be. You definitely got to put Ric Flair up there. I mean, that guy's just created decades of memories that are going to resonate with wrestling fans for decades to come. So Ric Flair is definitely up there. I would probably say Kenta Kobashi from All Japan. At least he was in All Japan when I was there. I think he finished up in Noah, I believe. So Kenta Kobashi was another one. And then I'd probably have to say Kurt Hennig. Kurt Hennig was one of the guys that I looked at as possessing the technical abilities that I always wanted to emulate. I thought he was fantastic, and that's really a guy that I tried to emulate my style after.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, so this may or may not have influenced your decision. But I also was a pro wrestler for 2 matches.
Oh, were you really?
That's right, guys. Well, we had a event. I used to work at the Boys and Girls Club, and what we used to do at the time, one of the things to keep the kids busy was we played WWE pool, and we would try to knock. It would be instead of all the balls, it would be one color versus one color. And you try to knock your opponent. We had the music, and one person was Shawn Michaels, and it got so big that we're like, all right, let's raise some money to get some real wrestlers here. And we got Jerry the King Lawler, we got Mikey Whipwreck, we got a few other people, and
right on.
And so it was awesome. So you can edit that and on the future if you want to add me to that. But the I love Sean Morley here is not just because he's provided a service of creating joy for countless millions of people, and that's one of the most important things that any human being can do. But he's also been someone who has a very sharp mind and has been speaking out about a number of things. And most importantly, in my opinion, the largest malefactor in all of society, which is the government. Now, I also, doing some research for this, I was going back, looking through some of your old clips, and I seen a clip that, if I was watching it back then, I wasn't awake. You were talking about the IRS and how they'll screw you then. So I thought that was really cool that you threw that in there, first of all. How long have you been awake, and what woke you up to this?
Back when I was a teenager, um, I went through public school like everyone else. And it was one of those things where I was never into politics. It never interested me. But if you had have asked me what my political positions were before I was 18 years of age, how I would have answered the questions as to what my positions were, you immediately would have come to the conclusion, and rightly so, that, oh, I'm a left wing socialist. And I mean, if you had asked me about universal health care, yeah, universal health care for everybody. But it wasn't like I put any thought into it. It's what I was conditioned to believe. It's what I was told my whole life. The Canadian healthcare system, the greatest healthcare system in the world, and I never really put any thought into it. So if you had asked me, universal health care, up or down, I would have gone, yeah, up all the way, without ever thinking about it. So my political positions back then, I was conditioned to be what people would consider a left wing socialist. Um, when I was 18 years old, I read a book by Ayn Rand called Atlas Shrugged. And I don't know why I read that book, because it wasn't like I was a big novel reader. The only other novel I read before that was The Outsiders in high school. And I only read that book just because we had to as an assignment. So I don't know why I read the Ayn Rand book. It was recommended to me, and it kind of sat around for a little while, but I finally cracked it open. And once I got through the first 3 chapters, I don't know why, but I just didn't want to stop. So I just kept on going. It was intriguing to me. And even though it was a novel, the picture it was painting in terms of the relationship between government and private sector humans was a completely different picture than what I was conditioned to believe that relationship was. And even though it was a novel, I was like, man, this stuff could theoretically really be like this. And I don't know. I'm assuming you've probably read the book. You've read the book, so you know the whole story with just the relationship between government, human beings operating on the platform called government, and human beings operating productively in the private sector. It's not a good relationship. It's a power hungry relationship uh, by people that have no right to have any kind of power over productive citizens, private sector human beings, life or productivity, anyways. And yet they do. Government's constantly trying to seek power over the fruits of productive people. And when I started looking at that relationship in a different light than what I was taught, you start going down that rabbit hole. And I started reading. I ran into a book from Neil Boritz. I don't know if you remember him. He was a libertarian talk radio show host out of Atlanta, and he wrote a book. And I got a hold of that book, and it went down the rabbit hole from that point on, just learning more about libertarianism. And so I probably went from being a left-wing socialist to becoming much more conservative economically, and then becoming much more, over time, liberal socially. And found myself in my early 30s to be a solid libertarian, but the learning continued. And it was about my mid 30s when I found out about Lysander Spooner, and that Ayn Rand took me from here to here. And then all the other books that I read, after Ayn Rand, from like Neil Boritz, Milton Friedman, and I mean, that took me from here to here. And then when I found Lysander Spooner, right here, I'm a libertarian. When I found Lysander Spooner, it just pushed me straight on to anarchy and becoming an anarchist. And that's where I sit today. And so it was a learning process. It was a journey. But yeah, I have no faith in the state whatsoever. None whatsoever. If you're not operating in the private sector, as far as I'm concerned, you could be considered a criminal. I mean, even police officers today, even you could find the most constitutionally respecting police officer in the world, put him in front of me, and I can take him into court and with facts prove that the man's entire standard of living is funded with stolen loot that's been stolen from human beings being productive in the private sector. Now, that cop willfully pursued a career knowing that his entire standard of living would be funded with stolen loot. But he's conditioned to think that taxation is something other than the crime of extortion and theft. And I'm not okay with that. That's when a cop tells me that taxation is something other than the crime of extortion or theft. Well, that's like telling me that, I have a clearly biological male comes up to me and says, my pronouns are she and her. Okay. And taxation is something other than the crime of theft as well. I mean, you got to stop with the delusions right at the very start. And, you get a lot of Americans. I was one of them. You think taxation is a legitimate government function, a legitimate market function? We've just all been conditioned to believe that. It's an extortion racket, and you can prove it in a court of law. And so I fell onto the side of anarchy, and I haven't budged since. I've been challenged a bunch of different times, and it was the challenging my own positions that finally led me to anarchy. Does that make sense? Oh, I think it went off. Maybe he'll come back on here. Hold on. Here he comes.
Okay,
there you
sorry.
are. There you are.
I don't know what happened. You just started. All right, guys, if you're just joining, share this video. We are here with two-time Intercontinental Champion, voluntarist advocate, and a lot more, which you're going to find out. We're going to get into a few more questions, and if Sean has some time, maybe we'll get to a few of yours in the comments here as well, too. And, you're absolutely right. People don't realize, I mean, for a long time, I was in the same boat as you were. I kind of was a Ron Paul libertarian until I found out that government is inherently violent and inherently immoral. So let's talk for a second. Can you guys hear me? Plus, let me know in the chat how the audio is. If you guys can hear me and Sean, give me a 1 if it's good, 2 if it's not good. Sean, if you can hear me, let's talk a little bit, because you kind of alluded to it too, about what happened to you on Twitter, because you're no longer on Twitter, unfortunately.
Yeah, I am no longer on Twitter. So, I was posting things about COVID, just things I was finding, I was sharing. When I'm kind of at that position where when I post something, I'm posting it to, unless I comment on it. But if I just post a story out there, I'm posting it to try and get feedback and thoughts from other people to see if I'm missing anything. Twitter, however, takes posting certain stories as, oh, you're posting misinformation. And of course, it's not misinformation, the stuff I was posting, but they ended up banning me for, a bunch of COVID posts. And it is what it is. They banned me 3 times. I got my account back the first 2 times, and I'm just not getting it back this time. So that's how that goes. Twitter's different, man. Twitter's a different place. Twitter is when I go on to my other Twitter account, which is my Dank Anarchy account, it just seems like the feed, no matter who it is I follow on there, I'm always getting a very leftist slant on my feed constantly, no matter who I follow. And it's incredibly weird, frustrating, and I don't know, man. Twitter is a different world, and it's so Orwellian.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. All right, I think we finally got some stability here on the chat, and I appreciate you guys bearing with me. Share this video. We've got a few more questions here. We're here with Venis, on more. Like, share, and subscribe to this video, and stick around for a little bit. We're going to tell you where you can find and what's up to next. I want to talk about, because I think it's an awesome thing that you're doing. Please.
Hey, Mike. Here's my future anarchist daughter right here. Say hi.
Yeah.
Future anarchist in the making.
All right, can you hear me, Sean?
I sure can, brother.
All right, great. So talk to us about Health for Life.
Yeah, Health for Life. So that's where I'm working right now. I've been there 7 years. Um, it was difficult to get in to get a job in the dispensaries back in when Arizona first legalized. There was only a few that opened up, and they were only really hiring family members and friends that were tight knit, which is understandable because back then people were still kind of sketchy about it in Arizona. So I ended up opening with a business partner of mine a cannabis consumption lounge called the Purple Haze House. My goal was to meet some of the dispensary owners and build a rapport with them so I can get on in the dispensary and learn the industry from the ground up. So we were open for about 6 months. Not one single dispensary owner or employee came into our lounge. A lot of ASU students did. A lot of blue collar workers did, but nobody from the dispensaries. And then finally, about 6 months in, the main extractor named Bryant, the main extractor for Health for Life, he came into my vapor lounge with his girlfriend. And so I figured out where he worked, kind of built a little rapport. Next thing you know, I'm getting an interview with Health for Life and got hired on. And so we had the vapor lounge for almost a year. And then I finally got into the dispensaries. So I've been there 7 years now, and it's grown huge. We started off with 2 stores. Now we got 4 here in Arizona. I think they just got 4 licenses for Nevada, but we have a huge cultivation facility in Nevada. I believe they have 16 stores open in Florida now, 3 in Maryland, I believe it is. And I think they just opened up their first one somewhere in New Jersey, I believe. They've been trying to get that one open for a couple of years, but just so much red tape to get that one open in New Jersey, of course. Government, right? Standing in the way every time, brother.
Yeah, it's really sad that we imagine we live in a civilized society where we can bomb Yemen and create terror all across the globe. But if you possess a plant, hemp, the same one that George Washington grew, well, you're going to jail, idiot. So let's talk about this too, because it seems like your awakening experience paralleled with your career in pro wrestling. Were you chatting it up with some of these other superstars that were out there? What were their takes on it? I mean, I know Kane is a libertarian mayor out in Tennessee or Chattanooga. Were you bringing this information to these other superstars, and if so, what were their thoughts on it?
Yeah, when I first started with WWE and I met Kane, he kind of seemed more like a right wing neocon, but not an extreme neocon. But he to me, it appeared he leaned that way. Kane's a smart dude. He was conditioned to be that way, but he was also opening to listening to facts. So there was another wrestler. You remember Al Snow? Remember him?
Everybody wants.
Yeah, Al Snow is a brilliant man. That guy is absolutely brilliant. I would be debating politics all the time with Al Snow, and when Kane would come into the debates, he would be asking rational questions about the positions I was making, and I could tell right away because when you instead of telling me why something is so, when somebody starts asking why do I hold that position, I'm okay. This guy's inquisitive. He really does want to. He does. He's willing to have his own position challenged. Otherwise, he wouldn't be asking these questions. Kane was that guy, and so it seemed like as I was presenting, I was asking Kane questions about his positions, and using the Socratic method, where eventually he starts to see that, oh, I'm used to answering it this way, but now you got me thinking about it. And if I answer that way, I know that's not right. And so Kane was that guy that went, oh man, I never thought about it that way. And the next thing you know, I gave him a Neil Boritz book. I got him in touch with the Free State Project up in New Hampshire and Free Talk Live. I don't know if you know those guys up there or not, way back in the day. And the next thing I know, Kane's got all these other libertarian books. He's studying, economics with a bunch of material from the Mises Institute, and he just turned into a libertarian monster. And so between Kane, there was Kane and Al Snow were the two guys that I would constantly, discuss politics with. And the rest of the guys, the only time they really cared about politics was as it got close to April 15th. Other than that, they didn't care about politics at all. One of the guys that really shocked me was The Rock. Rock he was never once interested in politics. In fact, I know a couple of times he would come to catering and he would listen to Kane and Al Snow and I talk about politics, and he would go, "Oh, I'm moving," and he goes to another table. He wanted nothing to do with politics. Then he comes out with some video in full support of Joe Biden. I'm just scratching my head. And, of course, the interview was smoke and mirrors. There was no substance to it whatsoever. Hey, how about ask him about our taxes? How about ask him about, free market-based healthcare? How about fixing the money supply? No, none of that. It's all about capture the emotions of the people. And they say nothing. They say a lot and they say nothing. And Rock fell right into that. And that was disappointing. I was so disappointed with that interview he did with Joe Biden.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you so much because, just like you, I idolized The Rock growing up, and I'll still use it on the officers. We're like, "Hey, what's your name, badge number?" And they were like, "It doesn't matter what your name and badge number is, right?" And when he went and supported Joe Biden, it was like a punch to the gut right there. I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
but at least we have you to thank for more freedom. I mean, you waking up Kane is the bigger story here. And now the residents of the county, which I cannot recall the name off the top of my head there in Tennessee, are living more free as a direct result of one conversation, not one, probably multiple conversations with Sean Morley, a.k.a. Val Venis. So yet another reason to applaud. Now, Val, I know you're a busy guy. We're kind of winding down on time here. What are some of the best ways to get in touch with you and to support you, and tell us about your projects that you have as well too, because you got a lot still going on right now. And what are the best ways for people to get in touch with you?
Well, I'm on YouTube at Top Shelf Anarchy. So I got I got a few audits up there, a few little run-ins with a few of the police. I would love to, start producing more content for that channel. That's something I been wanting to do for a long time. Is not so much do it as a hobby anymore, and maybe transition out of full-time cannabis and go into auditing. So I've been, thinking about that, putting that back on the plate. Of course, the other thing is starting my own cannabis brand as well. We're doing cannagars, real high-end cannagars. We're going to start busting out some hash grows as well. And so we're going to, build that out. But I think that what you guys are doing there, media, bro, like you guys are seriously the real journalists in this world. And the world needs a lot more of you. And I think what you guys are doing is incredibly important. It's pushing back on the Marxist ideology that's just getting rammed down the throats of young people all across America today. And you guys are challenging that system face to face. And I think putting that up on YouTube for the rest of America to see is incredible. It's real journalism. You take a look at CNN and Fox News, and all you got is propaganda. That's all it is. And I don't even turn on that news anymore. I turn on you guys to see what's going on in the real world. You guys are shining a light on that relationship between government and private sector humans. And that relationship really needs to be more exposed for what it really is and not what it's portrayed to be. And what it really is tyrannical. We're oppressed. We're dictated to. And what's up, brother? What's going on?
Hey man, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Hey.
I've watched wrestling since I was a kid, man. So it's just amazing to have you here. This is your house too. Anytime you need it, man. You're here. You're more than welcome to join us anytime.
That's right.
Thank you so much, man. That means so much coming from you. I love your guys' channels, man. Auditing America, guys, right there. It's a pleasure to finally meet you here, brother.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
It's the same feeling over here, man. Thank you so much.
Heck
Well,
yeah, you guys got to keep that work up, man, because it's needed. You guys just got to know you are the real journalists in America today. You know, you got you, James Freeman, Long Island Audits. I mean, you guys are killing it out there. You know what I mean? And you need more of it. You got to keep pushing back against this Marxist ideology. It's terrible what's going on out there today.
guys, that just goes to show how humble and loving of a person that Sean Morley, aka two-time intercontinental champion Val Venis is. I said, hey, why don't you promote yourself? He started saying nice things about us. All right, guys, I need the moderators and everyone in the chat right now. Go over and put in Top Shelf Anarchy. Go over there.
Yeah.
Let them know Auditing America sent you, and you better hit the bell. Why? Because pretty soon, Mr. America and myself, we're going to be out in Arizona smoking, doing audits with Val Venis. Val,
Yes.
for joining. I will be in touch with you soon. I want to say thank you so much to all the viewers. Share this video. Thank you, most importantly, to Mr. America for allowing this happen. Guys, Val Venis, Auditing America. You guys have a great mic, fake mic, real news. Peace out, guys.